Dipika, and I'm giving a talk called There's Not That Much Time Left. So there's not that much time left, and this is how much time I actually have. It's my kitchen timer. It's really handy because it reminds me to focus. I've been thinking about death a lot, and I thought I'd bring some of that to TEDx today. Yeah, so why am I thinking about death so much? Gosh, I think it has to do with this really bad back pain I got about a year and a half ago. I'm okay now, but my chiropractor thought I had tuberculosis of the spine. It was so tense. And I went and got it checked out. I'm okay, but man, I was scared. I got all this yoga and acupuncture, and I learned how to breathe and think about things, but not think about them too much because, you know, I start thinking about death all the time. Because a friend of mine in 2010 passed away from cancer, a really close friend, and it really upset me because he was only a year older than me. And I went to the memorial, and I just kind of never really faced this stuff. So I think that the back pain had a lot to do with just not wanting to deal. Another thing that happened in 2010 was I got some friends together, and they started talking about the end of the world in 2012. Because did you know that the Mayans predicted the world was going to end this year? Who knew? Okay, spoiler alert, it won't, but the solstice this year, December 21st, was when they thought that, you know, their calendar runs out and everybody got all worried. And so people thought, oh my gosh, you know, the world's going to end. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to enjoy the time we have left? And then earlier this year, there was an article that came out in The Guardian, and it was called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Okay, so since I was on this kick, I was like, oh my God. And I started quoting this article to all these people because things that people were thinking about as they were on their way out in the world, you'd be surprised. A woman recorded some of their regrets, and it turns out that people said they wish they had let themselves be happier. They wish they had been able to express their feelings more. They wish they didn't work so hard, or that they, you know, just enjoyed themselves a little more, that they could have lived a life that was a little more true to themselves. That's what people said. Ouch. I asked some friends before this talk what one word comes to your mind when you think there's not that much time left. People were saying things like presence, breathe, now, bold, hurry, let's do this again, and help, and election. So there was a lot that people were giving me as I was thinking about this. And one of my friends said, I don't know if I am in time for you, but I feel like I say that every morning as I get my kids ready for school. There's just not that much time left. So where am I going with this? Well, what are the chances that we're going to die, like tomorrow? I mean, I have a friend who's an actuary, and I asked her this. I'm used to filling out questionnaires when I go to the doctor, you know. I'm 37, I don't smoke, I don't think I have diabetes, I hope not, but, you know, since I've been stressed about all this stuff. I wonder, but no, I don't. And some of the things that you would think are on the list, like how much do you weigh, are you healthy, do you eat bad food, okay, sure. But some things that I was surprised about that they asked in this questionnaire were like, do you floss? Do you feel valued at work? Do you have a neighbor that stresses you out? How much aspirin do you take? And how much tea do you drink? Now, the tea thing really worried me because I drink a lot of tea, especially when we lived in Ireland, because you drink like 15 cups a day. It's cold, you just put the kettle on, that's what you do. So I was surprised about that, but I was okay with it. And also, I went back to this probability theory stuff because, I was talking to my friend who's really mathy, and guess who invented the math behind probability? Hints? It has to do with a triangle. Blaise Pascal, who actually didn't invent the triangle thing, but used it a lot in coming up with the math behind what we have today as probability. What happened was, it was 1654, and this guy who, at the age of 3, lost his mom, and grew up kind of as a nerd, and was homeschooled by his dad, who said, I don't really want you to do math until you're 15, because I want you to focus on Latin and Greek, because, And then he found out when his son was 12, he discovered him drawing on a wall with a piece of charcoal, proving that triangles have interior angles that add up to the same thing that 2 right angles add up to. And his dad said, okay, you can study Euclid, cool. So he was playing a game of gambling with some friends in 1654, and what happened was he wanted to know how they were going to split the pot when the game was interrupted. And so how do you even think about that? It's a game of chance. Like, how do we divide up what's there? And also, he wanted to know that if you roll dice in a given number of times, how many times are you going to get 2 6s? So he wrote letters to another French mathematician, Pierre de Fermat, and together they came up with the math that today is used for probability theory and economics. Did he know that he was going to leave that kind of legacy? I'm not sure. And speaking of legacies, who remembers the 1980s when Remember the Time came out? Michael Jackson? Remember the time? Well, Michael Jackson thought he was going to live to be 150. Do you guys hear about the oxygen chamber? So here's this guy who died at the age of 50, but he thought that if he had this case that he went into a couple of hours a day that gave him pure oxygen, I'm talking like 100% oxygen, not the 21% that you get just taking a deep breath and breathing regular air. He thought that this was going to work for him. And what it does when you breathe oxygen that way is your old cells are really happy because they don't have to work as hard, and it's like getting more juice out of the battery, so they last longer. So, he was onto something with this aging thing. But how did he know that he wasn't going to get there? And how did anybody know that this really amazing person who made all this great music for the world was going to go that way? We just don't know. And people who fear death fear the unknown. I read that in a book about phobias. People are scared to know what's going to happen. When I was 23, I traveled all around India, and I went to the north and saw the mountains. I went to the oceans, and I saw the deserts too. And I came back after traveling all around with my video camera and writing stuff in my journals about how amazing it was. Like, I actually wrote, it was so amazing. I checked in Delhi with my aunt, who said, wow, you're really excited about all that? And I said, yeah, I'm really excited. And she said, I think you might like this author. She gave me a book. It's called Gitanjali. And I read it, and I cried. I didn't know that the author of this book of poems, Rabindranath Tagore, won a Nobel Prize for literature for this book, which he got in 1913. I didn't know that the person who wrote the preface of this book was W.B. Yeats, who said, whatever philosophy is made into poetry is alone permanent. I didn't know that Tagore traveled 30 countries. I didn't know that he met people like Einstein and H.G. Wells, and Robert Frost, and Ezra Pound, and George Bernard Shaw, who said, people are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. I believe the people who get on in this world are the ones who look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, make them. Choices, circumstances. There's not that much time left. One of the things that we forget to do in our modern world of factoring things by probabilities is thinking about what's in our hearts. What do we want to see happen at the end of our lives? Really, all we're going to be left with is our feelings and our memories. How do we want that to look? Where do we want it to go? Are we being intentional? There's not that much time left. One of the things that I think I should go back to the Mayans again and tell you that really, we're okay, because what people were getting stressed out about had to do with this calendar, which 5,000 plus year calendar that actually just runs out around now, plus or minus 150 years. The movie 2012 came out, lots of books have been written about the end of the world. They're doing really well with this economically, but even though we get all this bonus time now to think about things, because we have more time, it's not going to end in 2012. What are we going to do with that? Everyone says the Mayans were really smart. It was really, they knew all this stuff about astronomy. I got really stressed about this 2 years ago. It took a long time for me to get up the nerve to Google, Mayan civilization, end of the world, 2012. I was really scared to find out. But then I realized, it's kind of like facing death too. I was scared to find out. NASA says that we don't really have to worry about this. They have a whole frequently asked questions page. There's not going to be a black hole. Your friends from high school are wrong. The astronomer thinks that the idea that there's an invisible planet or something nearby that we can't see that's going to hit us is just plain silly. So relax, take a deep breath, because that's really what gives us life, I found out from yoga, and my back's okay. Acupuncture is really good too. I also went to Georgia recently. Has anyone been to Brunswick? There's this cool place you can go and hide out in the woods, and I did this for a week with one book. It's a Tibetan book about how experts in this helping people pass on to the next thing come and talk with those who are dying and calm them, because we have this consciousness as we're about to go. And these folks come in and walk them through the process, and their relatives. And it's this thing they do together, and it's a part of life. The Western folks call it the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but that's a mistranslation. It's not really just about dying and going away. It's about that interval between one life and the next. So there's a lot more to say about that, but I think it's better if you read it. And really, all we have to do is pay attention to our life that we have and the breath that we've been given. And I know this sounds really, I don't know, you can decide what it is for yourselves, but I didn't know. I didn't think about all this stuff when I was stressing out about death. I mean, I lost a really close friend when I was 10, and I just stuffed that, never talked about it, still haven't talked about it. We hide this from children. And sometimes I think we hide birth too. I mean, we get ourselves drugged up and we, go through the procedure, and everybody has a different experience with birth. I'm lucky because I had an amazing birth experience, and I know that when I die, I hope it's as amazing. I know that sounds strange, but it was amazing. And you get an awareness of this whole other thing, this whole other set of things that's out there in the big black empty. And then you're more aware of the time you actually have. I like to say, dark places pen light. It helps me appreciate what's here and be intentional with where I want to take things. And if there's anything that I'd hope that you take from this talk, it's that I hope you imagine for yourself a life that you want. So you don't have to go back in time or anything and ask Blaise Pascal to calculate with him. Maybe you could give him a calculator and a pencil and a piece of graph paper. Hey, but I got bonus time. We could ask him to do this proof, and maybe he would do a bunch of math and find out, x equals 42 or something, and we would know what it's all about. But really, it's all of us need to figure out where we want to go, what we want to do, what legacy we want to leave. I know this is heavy, but my back pain went away. It took a long time, and I was afraid it never would, and I was super grumpy, and I was giving my family a hard time. Sorry, guys. But I feel so much better now because I know that when the end comes, I will hold it. Tagore wrote that he would die into the deathless. He also said that he loved life so much that he compared it to an infant suckling. And when the infant's taken from the first breast, he cries, but then he's as soon put on the other one. And in that way, life and death can be comforting. Thank you so much.